Right. Good afternoon. My name is Chase Langlois, and today I'll be speaking to you about a very controversial topic. A few weeks ago, we heard a speech that was presented on Donald Trump with the main proposition that Donald Trump is not only a bad candidate, but he is also a dangerous candidate. The following subclaims were made to support his main proposition. 1. Donald Trump is unsympathetic towards ethnic minorities. Number 2 was Donald Trump uses propaganda to appeal to the fears of uneducated conservative voters. And 3, Donald Trump is making a mockery of the electoral process. Today, I will be analyzing the proposition and its subclaims to show you how Evan Tuttle, the speaker, failed to provide sufficient evidence that Donald Trump is a poor choice and candidate. To begin, I have 2 responses to why his first subclaim, that Donald Trump is unsympathetic towards ethnic minorities, does not support his main proposition that Donald Trump is a poor choice and candidate. My first point is that the speaker failed to cite and explain the context of his supporting points. More specifically, he stated that Trump promotes that Islamic people should wear special identification badges similar to the Jews in Nazi Germany. He then went on to state that he doesn't want his Islamic neighbors to have to go through what he went through. However, the speaker did not explain what he exactly had to go through, and he failed to provide any evidence or context into his supporting claim. Without proper evidence or background information, the audience has no context into the support of the argument, which makes his point irrelevant to supporting the main claim. Additionally, in an interview with CNN in September of 2015, Donald Trump directly stated, "I love the Muslims. I think they're great people." In the same interview, Trump also said that he would consider putting a Muslim on his cabinet or even his ticket. And throughout his entire presidential campaign, Donald Trump has been quoted stating that he loves almost every single ethnic minorities. So because of that, I would actually make the counterclaim that Donald Trump is actually supportive of ethnic minorities. So my second response to his first subclaim is that the speaker has reasoning flaws within his subclaim. Evan states that because Donald Trump throws people out of his rallies, it makes him unsympathetic towards ethnic minorities. However, since Donald Trump actually pays for his venues, he has the legal right to kick out whoever he wants. Excuse me a little bit. All right. Additionally, Evan gave no real evidence within his supporting argument to show how his point logically connects Donald Trump to being unsympathetic towards minorities. In fact, Evan tries to support his argument by saying his Facebook friends are trying to go to the Donald Trump rallies to get kicked out of it for the fun of it. However, that is a claim of value, and it has no relevance to the fact that Donald Trump is a poor choice and candidate. So next, I'm going to discuss why his second subclaim of Donald Trump uses propaganda to appeal to the fears of uneducated conservative voters does not support his main claim. In this section of the speech, the speaker lost his organization and his reasoning process became flawed with several huge assumptions and generalizations. To start, Evan's supporting subclaim is again a claim of value and cannot be used to prove a claim of fact. Next, the speaker makes a huge inference when he compares Donald Trump's campaigning strategy to that of North Korea's. He supports this equivocation by citing a video of people dancing to a song about Trump views. This argument has reasoning flaws because it fails to logically show how the speaker arrived at the conclusion that Donald Trump appeals to the fears of uneducated conservative voters. Since the speaker was unable to explain his reasoning, and because his argument was a claim of value, he cannot prove that Donald Trump is a bad or dangerous candidate. Lastly, I'm going to examine his third claim, that Donald Trump is making a mockery of the democratic process, and show that it does not support his main claim that Donald Trump is a bad candidate. My first reason is that, again, Evan uses opinion evidence when he cites Anderson Cooper saying Trump is acting like a 5-year-old. In order to prove a claim of fact, Evan needs to cite factual evidence, and that he clearly does not. Okay. Evan's next point is that because Trump bullies, he's a bad candidate. However, almost every single presidential candidate has used bullying tactics at some point in their career. For that reason, you cannot factually assume that Donald Trump is making a mockery of the democratic process. In conclusion, the speaker failed to properly define, organize, and cite his secondary claims to support his main claim that Donald Trump is a bad and dangerous candidate. Because of this, his argument 1 did not show sufficient proof to show claim, 2 was based off of value and not fact. 3, it made unreasonable analogies and inferential leaps. And 4, his supporting arguments were not relevant and did not apply. Therefore, the speaker failed to prove that Donald Trump is a bad candidate. Thank you.
All right, Chase, everything's very well organized. It's easy to follow. You explain and summarize what the advocate's argument is pretty well and remind us of what those points are. You have specific responses to each of the evidential points on the first point. I do think that you could probably use a little bit different strategy on some of the arguments, but for example, the argument about his being fundamentally against particular ethnic groups, you come back with Trump's own words, which I think is a good way of phrasing it. You keep mentioning context as being left out, and I think that you could probably provide a little bit more context yourself for the original arguments, but you've got counter arguments that in essence try to deny those particular claims of the advocate. So I thought that that was reasonable. The reasoning argument on throwing people out of the rallies, that's okay, although most of that's asserted, and you are kind of critical of the advocate for failing to cite evidence on a couple of points, and I think there's an absence of evidence on your part on that particular point. On the second point, you basically argue that it's not relevant and it makes a variety of assumptions. You argue that it's a claim of value argument. I'm not quite sure why it automatically falls into a value argument. That's not very well explained. The argument about propaganda equivalency is challenged primarily on a reasoning argument, suggesting that there's not any reason to believe that a video of people dancing is analogous to the propaganda techniques of North Korea's, except apparently they have videos of people dancing too. So I'm not sure that that necessarily leads to the conclusion that you're talking about. I think that's a good challenge and press on that, and that there's not really much that's sufficient there to prove that point. On the third point, again, you signpost your points pretty well. Same criticism that I had on that last point. You don't have any evidence on one of the points that you're presenting about candidates. All candidates do some bullying. So I think that you are basically pressing back with the same argument that the advocate's making there. I think you need to suggest, for instance, that bullying is all in the eye of the beholder. Is it bullying to stand up for yourself, to disagree with somebody else's point of view, to challenge them on what they've said? What examples of bullying did the advocate cite? You weren't very specific about that. I don't know if the advocate was very specific about it, and I think that might have been a stronger way of going after that. I thought you had an excellent summary at the end of the speech explaining why it is that you think your position is the correct one. All right, thank you.